Welcome back to Briggs on Books. What a great job I have. I get to read books all day, and then I get to talk to authors for a couple of hours every day. I love this job. I love books. I love talking to authors about their process and how they got their books finished and things like that. Our next guest is probably one of the most exciting authors we have on our show. She just brings a ton of energy in every time she comes. I mean, for weeks in advance, we're talking about the books and researching them and stuff. Check this out. This is her latest book, Silver Echoes, from her Gold Digger series. Please welcome to our show, Rebecca Rosenberg. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me again. I love coming and talking to you.
By the way, I want to get right to the Gold Digger series and the latest book, but let me just pop up this slide. These are the books we've talked about in the past, the Champagne Widows series and the Madame Pommery series about women, the first women of Champagne.
All these are good for March coming up because they're all women in history who have done extraordinary things. Yeah. And I kind of think March to March, who can I write about next who's really going to be something?
Yeah. Now, by the way, you are in Sonoma area in California. Is that wine country?
Of course, and that's why I write about Champagne. In fact, right behind you, I'm looking at all the beautiful vineyards of Sonoma.
Nice. Now, are you, you grow lavender as well?
I do. I'm a lavender farmer.
Lavender farmer.
And we own the largest lavender company in the country.
Yeah. It may surprise you to hear this, but you're the only lavender farmer we've ever had on the show.
Really? You know, we should get some more people because I have written a book about lavender as well.
By the way, this series, this Silver Echoes, the Gold Digger series, I'm very excited about it because, you know, I'm a history buff. And you're writing about, as you often do, real live people and things and places.
I love doing that. Have you ever heard about, had you ever heard about Baby Doe Tabor, who's Silver Dollar's mother? Get these names, Baby Doe Tabor and Silver Dollar Tabor. Those are their real names. Had you ever heard of them?
I had not. And that's one of my first questions is, you grew up in Denver. Were there folklore around them as you're growing up?
They're the most famous people in Denver. So the Tabors were the richest silver miners in the entire country.
Oh my goodness.
And the man, Horace Tabor, actually became a U.S. senator, and he was the lieutenant governor, and he owned hundreds of silver mines. But then sadly, in 1893, we had the silver crash, and they lost everything. So you're talking about, like, they were as rich as the Vanderbilts, and they lost everything. And that's why their story is so amazing, because in the case of Baby Doe, she was living that rich life, and she was a great philanthropist, and all of a sudden she can't afford even a room at a hotel to live in, and they had to live with friends. And she ended up living in her mining cabin up in Leadville, Colorado. And it's a one-room cabin that I have spent a lot of time in, and you would not want to live there, for sure.
Now, this is a novel, of course. It's a story, but it's a story about real people. But tell us about some of the research you went through to build this novel.
Well, this is her daughter, who is Silver Dollar Tabor. And her story was really fascinating because she was 5 years old when they lost all their money. 5 years old, but she had lived that life in the mansions and meeting rich and famous people. In fact, they owned two giant, beautiful theaters, and they had Broadway actors coming through. Their friends were very famous and well-known, like actors and Oscar Wilde and dancers and singers. So she grew up that way, and all of a sudden they lost all their money, and her father died, and her mother took her to this one-room cabin. And that gave her terrible childhood trauma. And I found out later, talking about how you find strange things out, I interviewed the old woman who wrote this book way back in 1980. And we talked about all the letters that Silver Dollar, this is a picture, a real picture of her. She was actually a movie actress in the silent film days and a burlesque star. So I just got so interested. But then when I talked to this older woman who's long gone by now, Evelyn Livingston Furman, she let me look at all the letters that Silver Dollar had written her mother. Wow. And those really got me super curious because over the 10 years that Silver was gone, she wrote her letters from 20 different aliases, 20 different names. So she made up all these names and she was living a life that her mother obviously couldn't understand. And I just wondered about that for years. And it's fascinating. So I have decided that Silver Dollar had an early case of what they used to call split personality. Yeah. So now the PC term is dissociated identity disorder. And that's the only thing I can think, because she was an amazingly talented woman and she just went way downhill. Wow. And in the 20s in Chicago, from being an actress, she had written books, she had written plays, she had written songs, she had even sung for the President of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt. And then she sadly hit a terrible demise. And I just thought, how did this happen? So I started really digging into it more and more.
Yeah, as a historian, when we can find original source material like letters, that's always just great. And I'm glad you got to dig into that. And you found biographies and news articles about her as well.
Oh, of course. In fact, this book was written in 1932, and he is a newspaper reporter. And so this is a reporter's account of the Tabor family. And he had it's always interesting and difficult, and you must know this, that when two different histories collide and they're not the same, which one are you going to choose? Right. And so I'm lucky to be able to just choose the facts that I can find and make it the best I can.
Yeah, that's great. When I read historical fiction, I always hope it's well researched, as you always do, because I want to learn something as well as be entertained by a great story, but I want to learn something about the period and about the people as well. So, I decided, because there's so much history in this and there are so many characters and aspects of, Prohibition, and I didn't know there were race riots in Chicago at the time. There's so much detail that I've decided to have a weekly blog on my Facebook page. So if anybody wants to look me up, you'll hear some very interesting things. Yeah. By the way, if you're watching this, and the interview's over, you look right below and you could see Rebecca's Facebook page and her Instagram and her web page and stuff like that. That blog would be fascinating because it's always updated and always something new to read.
I'm doing that, especially for this novel, because there's so much to dig into.
So much, yeah.
Prohibition, and that's a very exciting time in our history, the 1920s. What was really happening there was far deeper and more complicated than I ever knew.
Yeah. I'm a little older than your average reader or viewer, so I knew that Nevada was the silver state, or Colorado had a lot of silver mines, I should say. But a lot of our viewers don't know that. They don't know about the silver bust and all of that. So this can be a lot of new stuff for people. Are there, particularly in Colorado, are people interested in this book?
I'm going to have a tour through Colorado, and if anybody would like me to come to their bookstore or their gathering or their book club around Labor Day, I'm planning a whole tour there. And I did that with Gold Digger as well, and it was very fun because Colorado is really into its history.
Yeah. By the way, and we're here today to talk about this book, Silver Echoes, but can you just give our viewers a little synopsis of the strong women in history? And these are real people that you've written about in your books.
Yeah. So you've got Silver Dollar, and then Baby Doe Tabor, and I don't have my Champagne Widows book sitting in front of me.
I just happen to have the cover right here of the two.
Oh, okay. So I write about champagne as well, about the women who made champagne and who really revolutionized it. And in fact, I'm going to show you a secret cover because I am writing another champagne book right now. This is the Silver Echo cover, but this is my new cover, Licensed to Thrill, Lily Bollinger.
My
And
goodness.
so that's going to be coming out in October. So I'm in that process of writing that now. It's funny when you're a book writer because you're always in the middle of 2 or 3 books. You know,
Yeah.
you're talking about, I'm still talking about Madame Pommery and Champagne Widows, and then I'm talking about Silver Echoes, but I'm writing this book right now, Licensed to Thrill, Lily Bollinger.
So we're seeing the preview of the art.
Yeah.
By the way, how do people pick the next book they're going to read? Well, for me, part of it is the cover. The cover's got to really draw me in. I must say, all of your covers, I don't know who your artist is, but they're all amazing and really draw you in, kind of help tell the story.
Well, my covers always have a real historical entity in them, and so I work hard on doing that. A lot of times people just choose a pretty picture or whatever, and these are all real people. So I write not only historical fiction, but I write, it's called biographical historical fiction.
Right.
So it's about real people. So I'm lucky in that way because they're fascinating, more fascinating, because
are,
people can research more and learn more about these people, you know, once they read the book.
Now, I have to tell you, I do that when I read historical fiction. I do a lot of research. I really enjoy that. That's why I like historical fiction. But the biographical historical fiction really lets you connect with a real person. I appreciate that. Now, Rebecca, let me ask you, as many of our viewers are writing, trying to get their books out. And you write a lot of books. What's your discipline? You wake up every morning at 6 a.m. and start writing?
I do write really early. I get up like at 5. It's fair game if it's 4. And I start my day kind of slowly with a cup of coffee. And then I come into my office, light a candle, and start writing. And I would say the big thing is you have to love that subject because you're going to be writing it for a good year. Some novels have taken me 2 years. Now, I must really love this story, Mike, because I wrote the entire thing 10 years ago and put it aside because I didn't like the way that I was portraying Silver Dollar. And so I picked it up last year and started writing again. I had an entirely different idea. And actually, I was inspired by those letters. The letters to her mother that showed me that there was more going on with her. That her mind was really playing tricks on her. And that her mother didn't pick up on that because she was working on her silver mine in Colorado.
Yeah.
So that was fascinating.
The amazing part of the story is they moved in this little mining shack at one of their silver mines.
Yeah, and that was very traumatic.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And she had a sister who said, I'm not moving in there. And so she left her. So here's this little girl. By that time, she was probably 8 years old. And she had lost all of her money, lost her father, lost her sister, and in this mine while her mother is struggling to make ends meet. And it was really a struggle. When you see that mine that's there today, you can still visit it.
I would imagine they had a big, grand house that they lived in and were comfortable in, and little by little they had to move out to the shack.
Not even little by little. When in 1 month they lost every penny and they became paupers. And so that I discovered in my research, talk about research. This is the book that I used for most of my finding out about disassociation. Like I said, how does that really happen? We all heard the stories about Sybil and different people in history. In fact, I've always been kind of obsessed by that. Like, how does that happen that you can actually have different people in your mind? And it's a fascinating subject. Plus, you asked about research, you read all about the burlesque circuit because she was in burlesque, and I got to find out all about the motion picture circuit at that, not the circuit, but the studios at that time. Like, Hollywood wasn't even started then. They had the largest movie studio in Chicago. And one thing, Mike, see, you get me going and I can't stop really, because they had to make their movies in Chicago. They had a large wild animal zoo. So it was called the Selig Zoo and a movie studio. And they were doing these series of movies called Adventures in Kaplan. So all of that is in here.
Yeah.
And it's very thrilling.
I said at the beginning of the show that I had the best job in the world, but I take that back. You have the best job in the world because you get to research and read books and write. So I love to do all those things. Rebecca, my guys always say, Mike, why do you always go overtime with Rebecca? Because she's so fascinating and can tell a great story. But I just want to give you a minute. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to tell our viewers?
Right now, Silver Echoes is on pre-order on Amazon. And that is exciting because then the publisher knows how many they need to print. And it's coming out in May. And I hope we'll talk again before then. Yeah. But you can pre-order it right now on Amazon.
Pre-order on Amazon now. Go there. Type Silver Echoes into Amazon or Rebecca Rosenberg.
Yes. Either one.
Is there a link from your web address to Amazon?
I'm sure there is a to buy link. I'm sure so. And by the way, my website just got redone and you have to go see that. It's rebecca-rosenberg.com because there's a whole slideshow on Silver Echoes and it's really cool.
Excellent.
Love it.
Yeah, for our viewers, by the way, while you're there at Amazon looking at Silver Echoes, also take a look at these books, the Champagne Widows and the Madame Pommery. And as I always say, don't go and click once to order. Click 5 times, order 5 copies of each book. And they make great gifts to have around because you never know when you're going to need to give a gift. Thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike.
And you're one of my favorite guests because, like I said, you could bring this great energy and props and champagne live. And next time I'm going to have a bottle of champagne sitting here, too.
There you go.
We'll do that.
Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
And for our viewers, don't go anywhere because we're going to be back with another author right after this.